and welcome to Let's Talk Stupid. I'm Compound.
And I'm Proud, and today's episode is Podcast Will Be Stupid. Yay!
Alright, so I wanted to start with a little note to the listeners, as I feel like we need to explain this before we begin this episode. So, both of us are going to be caught up in a huge grand schemes of entrance exam and university university applications, right? So we don't think, it is very likely that we will have time to continue this podcast for a very long while, and we don't know when we will be able to return to doing it. But right now, we just wanted to make an announcement that it might be a very, 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 very long time that you are not going to see us.
Yes, that's right. And also, but we're not going to delete this channel, right? At least we want to keep it as some memories. Even though it's embarrassing, even though we made lots of mistakes, it's still great memories, mostly.
Yeah, right. I mean, nobody cried during our podcast or threw a tantrum, so we consider that pretty good, you know. All right. Okay, so normally we would start with a game, right? But this time we wanted to, kind of make a speech. Not really a speech, but kind of like, have a little talk with you guys about how what this podcast mean to us, and also what are we going to do in the future after this podcast end.
Yeah. So, as a tradition, I just start first, right?
Yeah.
I mean, sure. Okay, so one of my favorite phrases is uncertainty is certainty. When we started this podcast, that sounds so cool, right?
Yeah.
So when we started this podcast, we didn't know what was up ahead, but I was really glad that we gave all we had and we tried our best and we kept moving forward. Initially, they always say that it's always so hard to pass the threshold, right? But once you sort of get used to it, it started to be much more comfortable and eventually enjoyed it. And that's just what I felt throughout this process. For the first couple episodes, I was so anxious whether people are gonna criticize us or not, or whether we're gonna make lots of mistakes or not. But for now, I just laugh it off, and it's just a funny feeling. One of the episodes I once talked about the feeling of embarrassment, right? I said that it's just some funny feeling that, you're embarrassed, but it's funny, and it's usually not something big. And it also is a reminder that you're not perfect. No one is born perfect, and no one is born ready. And that's natural because we're just human, right? And I think that is just the fun of it, the fun of not knowing what's going to happen, what to expect, and that's the joy of life, right? If you know what's going to happen, it lost its value already. From what I learned from this podcast, there's so many things. For example, spontaneity. We didn't prepare much for each episode, but we improvise a lot, to be honest. And that's just so fun, to be honest, because we didn't know what our conversation is going to be, because we didn't exactly plan every single word, every single turn. And that's the beauty of it. The beauty of making this podcast is the uncertainty itself. And so with all that being said, all I'm trying to say is that don't stop learning and try to be a better version of yourself every single day. Yay!
Yo, that's cool. Okay, Thank you for your speech. So, right now, moving on to mine. At first, I feel like, okay, how am I going to make this such an ending speech? It's always hard to make because there are expectations some certain expectations that you need to mention aspects of this podcast in order for it to be satisfying for both of us and also the audiences, right? So let's go back to the day we first started it. I remember calling Proud and said like, hey, do you want to do a podcast? She was like, interesting. What's this gonna be then? We come up with a lot of names, and we end with let's talk stupid, right? And we listed bunches of topics. So the first one are like gambling and unicorn, which is unicorn is transformated into mythical creatures because that will include more of other fantasy species, right?
Yeah.
And I remember that we initially talked that, okay, do you want this podcast to have a script? Because normal podcasts, which is educational, will have a script, right? And we want it to be kind of educational, creative / a little professional. But we end up concluding that, okay, no script. But we're going to list our bullet points where we're going to mention, and we're going to take a look at each other's bullet points before we kickstart. The first episode went on. We glance at our scripts quite often, but I think that is that has some sort of charm in it. Like you prepare your script and then you finally get the chance to deliver what you've prepared. But we discover that spontaneity is like a lot better than that. It's more natural, right? And also, we feel like we want this conversation to be organic, so we decided to kind of automatically get rid of the script.
Yeah.
And like the editing of a lot of first episodes, let's say first episodes, was very difficult because we have to cut a lot of things out of what we said, especially stupid things. I used to not know the timing for dark humor, and it's probably not even funny. It's more like dark and like, what did you just say? Those sorts of things. And we stutter a lot, and sometimes our mother or father comes in the house interrupting the broadcast, and not actually exactly a broadcast, but interrupting the recording process. And we have to edit out a lot of things, including sounds of airs. What are we going to do with this quality of microphone? But we finally got past all of that, and I feel like every episode means something to me. And when I take a look or when I listen to Proud's voice or my voice, I always enjoy that thought that once we spend time together doing this podcast, and once there were listeners who, journey along the way with us. And also shout out to my mother. She watched the podcast every week.
Yay!
She pressed like and comment every week. Thank you very much. So I would like to say that even though this podcast ends, I don't think that the conversation about things between me and Proud will end. So don't you worry about that. But we're just not going to update it on YouTube that much. Right. So anyhow, I feel like you guys should, if you listen to this podcast, maybe you can call a friend and start a very interesting conversation about anything at all, because everything in our life is interesting and everything can be a topic for a fun thought experiment. So I would really encourage you to do so. Huh?
Yeah, I've heard of some, I'm not sure, maybe I read some self-help book or something. Then the author said that what he did was every single week he would reach out to a friend that he haven't spoken or talked or texted to for a month or more, like every week. That is his resolution, and I think that's pretty cute and nice, because you should keep updating with your friends. And well, especially during this pandemic, it may be quite lonely, very lonely, to be honest. You can't meet people in person, and that's that.
Agreed. Well, I think that's very interesting. So now anyhow, let's get back to our topic of podcasts will be stupid. So, well, there are a lot of podcasts recently, right? Not a lot. There's like tons of them. Mostly it just originated from a YouTuber trying to create like a split channel, and then it blew up. So what do you think about this new, this new type of podcast that also contains videos?
Could also contain videos.
Because normally podcasts would only be like voices, right?
Yeah, but also people on YouTube, right?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, we can also record our faces, but we were so afraid, to be honest, of our own faces. We don't know how people are going to perceive that, but well, it's kind of hard because for me, I think, well, it's just another platform. I don't think the traditional sense of podcast being not having the face parts are gonna extinct. People can, like, famous podcasts don't really have like that face. Wow, what am I saying? Because this is the last episode, my brain just stopped working again. Oh my god, it's like we're starting over again.
I mean, the tradition of podcast being something that you can listen without watching the video itself still remains in some of these YouTubers' so-called podcast channel. But, people just entertain it more when they also have a choice to watch their favorite YouTuber's face while they're just blabbering stuff. So what do you think about that?
I think it depends on the listeners. For me, I don't have to watch their faces all the time, and I want to do other tasks as well. Usually podcast takes like hours or 30 minutes plus, right? So I think it's not that necessary. If you want to listen to a podcast, then the main objective is to listen, not to watch, right?
Agreed. Sure, but it's just kind of like I really start to compare these new types of podcasts with like Twitch or streamings, because a lot of YouTubers justify their podcast channel by being, an unedited version of their videos.
But you can still edit your podcast, so I don't really know what they're trying to sell here.
Well, they don't edit it as much as their original YouTube video where there's like sound effects or, just funny memes interrupting when they're trying to play a joke. So, well, it's kind of similar to live streaming because there's not so much editing going on there, right? What do you think?
Honestly, I have been listening to some podcasts before. It varies again because there are so many types of podcasts you can do. Like, for us, I think it's more like a discussion, right? It's not like we are so that well prepared. We're an expert in this field or something. We're just talk about whatever we want to talk about, and maybe the diversity itself attracts people. Like, that's why people choose podcasts. It's like, it's just another form of media. I don't know what to comment about your question, but I think podcast itself is not that special. It's just another form of media, another form to connect with people. For our channel, for example, it's just a little corner of the internet, a little weird, cozy, comfortable, our safe space on the internet. I don't know.
Safe until somebody discover it and like butchered us.
Oh my god.
That's not gonna happen, right, guys?
Please don't.
All right. Well, yeah. True about the podcast just being another media. I mean, it's a sort of things that can be bended, right? When you wanted to change it into other shapes and forms, as long as people can listen to it without actually have to see the screen all the time. It's podcast, whether you have given them the choice to watch your face or not.
Yeah. Well, and these days people just mix medias up, and I don't really know how to categorize them anymore, to be honest.
I see.
They just try to reach out from every single platform. They don't even, like, some YouTubers, usually YouTubers don't usually stick with only YouTube. They have other social medias as well. So maybe a better way to call these people might be like an internet personality, celebrity. I don't know, because it's, well, we can have multiple jobs at the same time, right?
True. So moving on to the next question, since we've talked about internet personalities, do you think everybody has the quality to become a podcast creators?
Well, obviously not everybody. I don't think so. Well, but if you want to, you could try, and I do believe that people could improve. But it's like some people might be more suited with this one, with the podcast, because of their personality, their passion might be more suited with the podcast. But I honestly think that if you want to try, you could. You might not master it at first, and we still don't know how to figure podcasts out. Yeah, we haven't mastered it yet, to be honest. I still stuttered a lot, even in this episode. My brain suddenly stopped working for a little bit, but that's alright. That's the fun of it, and that's the fun of everything, to be honest, from my perspective. You can't just be good at everything, but honestly, is it called like that, the belief that people can do
humanism?
Probably humanism, right? The belief that people could do everything. I do believe in that too. We can take on the world and do literally everything if we try. Agreed.
Do you think, so you said that not everybody can be, and there are some certain specific traits that if you have, you are more likely to be able to achieve podcast mastery faster. So what are those traits, for examples?
Maybe you should have like the passion to do it first. You must not be forced to do it. That's the most important thing, honestly. And just maybe be a little tolerant to criticism, because you literally put yourself out there on the internet and anyone can criticize you.
Well, I think aside from passion, I think you also need to be able to, kind of spark conversations out of like things, right? Because sometimes when we need to talk to like our guest in multiple episodes, it's not every guest can come up with like a new topic to talk about, so we needed to kind of guide or kind of give them something to start on. And that's one thing that I feel like very important, and I'm still struggling with it, but I feel like it's very essential. If you wanted to make a podcast, you need to be able to get it.
Honestly speaking, I think you did it pretty well. Great job.
Yeah. Thanks. Well, for example, like the time that we talked to a lot of guests in our podcast, another skills that I feel like it's also essential is like, how can we manage their time, and how can we give everybody a chance to speak without making them feel uncomfortable. Like, we're not forcing them to speak, right? But we wanted everybody to have a chance. Like, maximum guest that we ever had is like 3, and that's very difficult.
Is it 3? 2? Isn't it 2? Is it 3?
I don't.
Is it 2?
3? There's one episode with Pim, right? And Ginny and
Jenny.
Yeah. Yeah, right? Is that?
It's 3. It really is 3. Oh my god, right?
You're the editor. How can you not know that?
I couldn't remember.
Alright.
It was like a long time ago. Oh. I have a really bad memory when it comes to things like this. We once talked about like our not childhood memories, our days back when we were in middle school or something, and Compound said, "Oh, Proud, you did this and that and that," and I was like, really? I have no idea.
Maybe I'm making things up, but who knows. Well, talking about memories, you know how bad it is just from the previous conversation I've just had, which we will cut it out. Right. Oh my god, okay. Well, I feel like that those kind of skills is essential no matter like in like every kind of media that contains more than one person, right? You need these kind of people skills in order to distribute time, distribute their presence. And most obvious one is like when you go to television shows, kind of talk shows like Jimmy Fallon. He did not perform very well in my opinion. He didn't give much of, his screen presence is quiet, not that shiny, but what do I know about the game show industry and the talk show industry? Okay, so Proud, what do you feel about the editing? Will the editing of the podcasts in our modern world change?
Well, I suppose it could. I have seen some features on YouTube that you can edit your video on the YouTube platform itself, but it's not that good. Maybe in the future AI could come in and play, to be honest. Most likely, I think, because they just have to do like speech recognition and cut the part that there are just too much dead air or some nervous laughs or stuttering. I don't know. I think it could be done. Like, anything can be replaced with AI at this point.
Well, I do agree. But it might be different because comedic timing is very, very hard. Like, since not all of people can master it, to be more specific, a very few amounts of people are able to master comedic timing. So I think that it will take a very long while for AI to figure that out.
Well, that's interesting. But for example, for our podcast, I think it's going to be a lot easier because we don't have that much pauses. I mean, like the comedic
timing?
Yeah, the comedic timing is not that much in our podcast. There isn't that much of that. For me.
Yeah, it's not very prevalent, right?
Yeah, and we do not have any sound effects. It's just pure conversation. So, well, again, it depends on the type of podcast again.
Though I've made efforts to make things funny, it's just not working out. So yeah, I just accept the truth that I don't have comedic timing. But yeah, it's true that it depends, right? So maybe the AI editing software might be more appropriate to the one that has a script or the one that is, kind of less natural. No, I mean just have a script because you can just edit the part that doesn't have the script out.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
That would be like as easy as pie.
Well, all right. Do you have anything else to add before we go to the ending?
I don't know,
It's fine, you can just jump to the end.
Sure, let's jump to the end.
Alright. Well, the question I wanted to... Well, if you have a question, you can also announce it. I think it's fine to have two questions. Well, the question that I wanted to ask the audiences is, have you spoken with anybody that made you feel like you've discovered new things? Who did you speak to, and what is the topic of your discussion?
That is a very long question, so I don't think I should ask them anymore.
Sorry, I mean, if you have anything, you're free to.
But honestly, it's always nice to talk to people in general, like to gain their insights, to learn about their days, what they've been up to. I think it's a lot better to talk like phone calls or in person than to just text. You get the different vibe out of it. You get the pronunciation, you get the pacing, you get the tone, and that's much more alive, sort of.
Yeah, agreed. Well, I used to think that in one episode of this podcast, I would try to kind of use British accent, but it's just really not my thing. I can't do that. It sounds unnatural.
Yes, for the few first episodes, I also sound very British, but I don't know how I evolved into this sort of American-ish accent. It just changed over time. Maybe I'm with Compound for too long.
I hope I speak in a proper American accent, but I don't know about that. I don't think so. Not exactly 100% proper, but at least if you guys give me 60%, I will be happy with my day now.
Oh, me too.
All right. So at the end of this podcast, I would like to thank everybody for sticking around.
Yes.
And or anybody who just visited this podcast after it has been published for a very long time, maybe in the far future. I would like to thank you for following our journey up to this point, and thank you for forgiving us for making mistakes along the ways, such as what we did in the episodes about the animals. And also thank you, Proud, for being a good friend and being a good co-worker in this podcast. I've really enjoyed the time we spent together, and I feel like throughout this 25-ish episode, it has been a long but a very pleasant journey we've taken together. You're one of the most capable people I know, so I'm very glad that we got a chance to work together in this project.
Thanks. What you just said is just so heartwarming and so nice and so sweet. I don't even know how could I possibly top that speech with my own. I'll just copy it and say that.
Sorry, that's not true.
God, that's a really true roast. But honestly, I'll just say that I do agree with everything Compound just said, and you're so nice and you're so capable, and sometimes I even looked up to you because you have that level of confidence, and wow. You're just my idol, Compound. Love you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm really bad at making speeches or talking nice to people or giving birthday wishes, to be honest. I don't really know what to say.
But that's really nice thing that you've made that 55 slides. That's really nice.
Honestly speaking, I think blessing people or giving advice is a skill to master, to be honest. You just have to choose the right aspects of it, choose the right words. It's really hard.
It's like a choice game, except every choice is wrong.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you have anything else to add, or this is just it and we'll say goodbye forever to our listeners, of course?
Not forever. Not forever. It's just the end of one chapter, but the new beginning of another chapter of our life. Do you want to talk about what we're gonna do in the next year? Probably get into university, right? Yes.
Hopefully, if I get into one.
You'll get into one for sure.
Yeah, we wanted to. I wanted to go abroad if I can. Well, but it's not really that certain, and I still don't want to say a lot about it because the pressure is building up, and I'm not feeling very well either.
That's all right. It's the most stressful time of the year. Time of the high school years as well, and everyone. I believe that every single one of us in our class is gonna feel the same. A little stressful most of the time to very freaking stressful.
Yeah, true. I do hope that anybody who is at the same age as us doesn't have to go through such a mental struggle. I mean, if you are currently in one, I hope that everything is better. And what my mother always says, she says that life gives you many chances. It's just that whether you're able to see them or not, and it probably doesn't matter that much as you think about the university and those kind of things. You always have second chances. What matters is that you always keep your heads up and be hopeful, because at the end of the day, when we all die, it won't even matter that we go to Rama or Sirirat or Chulalongkorn. If we live a happy life, then I think it's pretty much it.
Yes, it's worth it in its own way. And about the opportunity, I just want to add that don't wait for anyone to give you the opportunity. Take the opportunity yourself. Take the initiative. Start it yourself. Don't wait for anyone to just come up and say that you're so capable, let's do this together. Don't wait for that. Because in the real world, no one is going to just keep searching for you and find you. You just have to find them yourself.
True. That's it, guys. So
That's it. Oh, you can send us your answer to let's talk stupid, that's stupid@gmail.com, and you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. It's all Let's Talk Stupid.
Let's Talk Stupid. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Goodbye, and we'll see you again. Who knows when?
Who knows when, right? Okay. Bye.
Bye.